So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to introduce my lovely audience to my lovely guests today. To my left, JoAnne Riley, and you are from Edgewater,
yes.
Correct? Right? Bea Poulin, who formerly of Mayo, but now...
Shadyside.
Shadyside, excuse me. Not Mayo, but Shadyside.
34 years in Shadyside.
Did you really?
Mm-hmm.
And then now you're living in St. Mary's.
Now I moved to California, Maryland.
Okay.
Which is, it's still South County.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's just a little farther south.
But it's Calvert at that point, no?
No, it's St. Mary's.
St. Mary's County.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Across the Patuxent River into St. Mary's.
Okay. And but South County, I mean, have you both been South County centered for, I mean, obviously 34 years, but I mean, what about you, JoAnne?
Oh, yeah. We moved in Edgewater in the 60s, early 60s.
Is that right?
Yeah.
From
From PG County.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So what's the allure? What do you guys like about the southern Anne Arundel County, I guess, area?
Well, when I moved there 34 years ago, it was the only place we could afford to live in Anne Arundel. We were transports from the Midwest in an economic decline.
Okay.
After in the 80s.
Okay.
And we had job offers here, but we could not believe the cost of living in Maryland versus where we lived in Minnesota.
Minnesota, is that where it was?
Yeah, so we never intended to stay in Shadyside. I kept looking every weekend for another place to live.
Did you really?
And after 34 years, we loved living in Shadyside. It was a great place to raise our kids.
Yeah, it's a great house that you had there, too. That was a really great spot to be on.
Nice.
Yeah,
very nice. Yeah.
That was a house that went from a little cottage to a modern kind of hip place.
Right.
I was sorry to sell it, but kids are grown up.
Right.
Husband retired. I retired. Time to move on.
Right. Did you both had kids going through the school system, the public school system? So
yes.
Southern or South River?
Shadyside to Southern Middle to Southern Senior.
Okay, and then Edgewater.
Edgewater Elementary to South River.
South River. Okay.
Grew up. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your backgrounds. A little bit. We talked a little bit about like you said, being from the Midwest. Did you go to college? Where did you come from? Tell me a little bit about your histories, if you will. Go ahead, JoAnne, start.
Well, I grew up in the Edgewater area,
Did you?
and I went to Edgewater Elementary, but you asked about the kids. Growing up as a kid there, it was the water, crabbing, fishing, just the atmosphere there.
Yeah.
And that's what we did all the time.
Absolutely.
And I'm fortunate now to just move back in my family home.
Did you really?
Yeah, I just bought it from my sister, so I'm there.
I'm sure you've gone back to visit over the years. Do you still kind of get brought back to your childhood when you're in there?
Oh, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
That's a really
The
cool
water
feeling to
view,
have.
and it's gorgeous. And now my granddaughters come down and they can do fishing and crabbing, and so. But yeah, I grew up there, and I went to Annapolis Junior High School.
Oh, really?
And then to Southern, and then I ended up dropping out, but then I continued. I went to beauty school.
Okay.
And opened a business.
Did you?
Myself.
Where?
In the 80s. I started right in Edgewater.
Okay.
Yeah. And now my business, I'm still doing it, and I'm down in Deal.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So is it a specific kind of, I guess, would salon be the appropriate term for it?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a salon, but it's full service pretty
Okay.
much, not too in depth.
My daughter has actually talked to me about wanting to be a hairstylist. That's what she keeps calling it. But she's like, I want to be a hairstylist. I have you can tell by my hair, I'm not one for hairstyle, but obviously.
You definitely have a style.
I have a style.
You have a
That's
style.
true.
You have a style.
That's
going
true.
on.
That's very becoming.
I don't know if fashionable would be the right term, but at least
it's hip.
It's unique.
Yeah. But yeah, so with my career and raising my girls, and they all were raised in Edgewater also, because my parents lived there and they always went over to their grandparents' house.
Yeah.
So,
That's great.
yeah, my business, I work alone.
Do you?
So it's kind of nice. I don't have a lot of drama.
Yeah.
And you can have a one-on-one kind of.
Well, that's what they say.
Yeah.
Bartenders and hairstylists are kind of, they get the best
Kinda
gossip.
Well, it's not really gossip. It's about, it is, but.
You're the therapist that they don't pay for.
Right,
therapy for.
yeah. It's like you're more like a doctor.
Right, exactly.
Than,
Where's your certification? You need to put something up on the wall.
Yeah. Yeah, I said I have a PhD,
Yeah.
professional hairstylist.
And what's your art of choice? What's your medium?
I love photography,
Yeah.
and I'm self-taught. I really didn't go to school for it, but I absolutely love it.
When did you start?
Probably back in the when my kids grew, when I had children, and I bought a camera and I started photographing them, and then I kind of stopped, and then I got back into it again.
Yeah. It's always one of those things where you can come back to. Like, I was a sports person growing up, but now that my body's failing me, I can't play those sports anymore.
Yeah.
But you can always pick up the camera, and like we were talking about before with the Sony, now we have a camera that doesn't weigh 75 pounds.
Yeah, and then using the from digital to 35 millimeter.
Yeah.
And
what do you think is best?
whatever.
Since you've kind of experienced both, I'm curious. I'll ask you this too, Bea. I'm curious.
I think I like the digital now,
You like
and
it?
it's comfortable, but I still pick up my my 800
Do you?
Nikon 8000, I guess it is.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
and play with it. And doing manual, but I can still do manual. Teach myself manual on the Sony and using it in
Right.
manual, and that's fun.
Yeah. It is nice to be able to mess up and delete.
Yes.
Yeah. Very good, Bea. Tell me a little bit about your backstory, and then let's get into your photography experience.
Well, I'm kind of a happy wanderer.
Okay.
Although I haven't wandered too much in the last 30 years.
Yeah.
But I started, I went to school in Missouri, Kansas City,
Oh, wow.
where I grew up.
Okay.
And I went to University of Missouri. And, the first year was total lost year, not knowing what to major in.
Right.
And I think when I finally graduated after the 5th year, I had enough hours to have 2 degrees. So I did get my degree in art, general art, and education. I thought I was going to be an art teacher.
Okay.
And when I got out of school, there were no teaching jobs.
Really?
This was
Specifically art, though, or just teaching in general?
There were no teaching jobs to be had.
Really?
And it was 74.
Okay.
1974.
Okay.
While I was in school, taking all these hours, I studied every kind of art. The only art they didn't offer there was photography.
Huh.
And I
Do you know, probably because a lot of people don't consider photography art?
Yeah, but in Kansas City is a wonderful art institute called the Kansas City Art Institute.
Okay.
And a lot of East Coast kids come to Kansas City Art Institute.
Gotcha.
And I decided if I wanted to learn about photography, I was going to have to save my dollars because it was twice, maybe 3 times as expensive as a university.
Right.
So I did take a summer course in photography.
Right.
And I fell in love with it. And I was also living with a family, kind of like a nanny, who the woman was a professional portrait photographer in Kansas City.
Nice.
And she doesn't know this, and she's deceased now, but she really did inspire me to look into photography.
Right.
And my roommate also later on had a Leica camera that her dad had brought back from Germany, World War II. It was the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. It had all the lenses, handheld light meter, flash attachment, and it was all in beautiful brown leather. And my roommate didn't know anything about it, and I said, well, could I use it? So I used it for 2 years, learning how to use this very complicated camera, and all the instructions were in German.
Oh, man. Did you speak any German?
I did not. I was studying Spanish and Italian,
Oh, geez.
in college. But I figured it out to the point where when I took that course at the Kansas City Art Institute, I was using the Leica, and I did some pretty neat stuff. I still have the negatives from shooting that in that course, and also in that course you had to learn development. And go into the dark room there at the school and print your own picture. So I learned all of that. I could not do it today to save my soul, but I felt like, okay, I've got this under my belt. I can build on that.
Yeah. What was your first? It was a Leica, your first camera. What was your first?
Well, it was my roommate's camera.
So what was your first camera?
When we split, I had no camera.
Oh, that's a bummer.
I went one way, she went another way,
Right.
and I didn't have that beautiful Leica.
Yeah.
And years later, she came to visit me, and I asked her about the Leica, and she said, I still have it. I said, do you use it? She goes, no. So she went home that weekend and called me. She said, you'll never guess what happened. our house got broken into while we were visiting you, and the Leica was stolen.
Of course, of all things to get stolen.
And I felt so horrible because, her dad had brought it back from Germany. And
right.
It was a lot. And they, whoever got it probably pawned it off,
Couldn't have cared
right?
less.
Right.
Exactly.
But it was such a great camera.
Oh, man.
So I really didn't have a great camera for many years. I
Yeah.
had Minolta, rangefinder.
Right.
I had, all these little cameras, whatever I could afford.
Yeah.
Because I was dirt poor.
Right.
And it wasn't until probably in the 1990s, my husband said, I think you should get a really good camera. Let's go shopping.
Mm-hmm.
So we went up to Ritz.
Oh, Ritz.
Ritz
Yeah.
in Annapolis, and we met this great man in Ritz, and I bought my first Canon.
Okay.
And I really started shooting then in the 90s.
Okay.
Again, I've been shooting all along, but with
Right,
all these little...
Yeah, you become a mom, you work. You
Yeah.
have
But I
life.
always
All
took
those,
pictures of
yeah.
everything. And now, when I got ready to move last year to downsize, I have thousands and thousands of photographs in envelopes
Right.
and thousands in albums.
Right.
And all the negatives.
Yeah.
I have negatives going back 40 years.
Wow. Man.
And I also have slides. I did a whole thing on slides. Did you ever do slide
I have
film?
never done slides.
Heck
No,
yeah.
yeah.
It's great. That's the best.
Are you going to do anything with those
Eventually,
artifacts?
no.
Yeah. I have about...
I can live long enough.
If you, right. If you have enough time. I was going to say my husband, he used to work for an engineering firm in Annapolis, and they were digitizing all of their plats.
Yeah.
And then they were just throwing away the paper copies. And there were some that were done, areas that you would know in Annapolis, and they were done by the original owners of Macron, which I think opened
Oh, yeah.
long time
Yeah.
ago. You know what I mean? And so we have several tubes of those old plats in our closet, which, for 10 years, he's like, I swear I'm going to do something with them. And of course they sit there, but it's kind of like, you thinking about it with your, it's so much easier, at least in my opinion, and maybe, I don't have a huge value on material things, but I could easily throw away something that was worth money versus throwing away something that's got that sentimental value
yeah.
of the plats, or like you were saying with your slideshow or your negatives and your prints and things. I mean,
they're such a collection of who I was,
right,
and where I was, and who was important to me,
Yeah.
and what was happening to me. I mean, you think
Right.
about, I'm in my late 60s, and I'm a child of the 60s, and I have photos that prove it, and I go back and I look at the family photos that are prior to me. There are a lot of
Right.
photos of my family, like 2 generations, 3 generations back, and then it kind of stops. There's
Right.
no record of them.
yeah,
And the few that we have, we're going, who are these people?
right,
So, my big goal is I have to identify people and photos and
Right.
places.
so that your grandkids and great grandkids.
But the thing that's really great now about modern technology is that with the digital camera, you're uploading everything, and I have an iMac. So, I have this great program in the Mac that lets me identify faces and places and events. And right now I have 15,000 photographs on my iMac.
Yeah,
And they're not all identified by
Right.
any means,
Yeah.
but
yeah.
it's like the photograph. It's a photographer's nightmare not to have identified pictures, because your memory is not going to serve you
Nope.
forever.
Yep.
You think, oh, I'll remember where that was.
Yep.
Well, at some point
You're not.
You won't.
you won't.
Right.
So that's the dilemma, I think. Although the digital cameras now record where you are, what date it
Right,
was, and
right.
what
Geotag.
f-stop you were at.
Sure.
Yeah.
But of course, if you're like a lot of my pessimistic colleagues, the digital, what do they call it? The digital Armageddon is something that they all worry about and preach about, when it comes to, especially trying to convince people to print family portraits and things,
Yeah.
where what happens if...
Back up.
Right. Well, I was going to say, pick up these. I have about 4 of these external hard drives that are full. I also have, I think, 2 or 3 terabytes of cloud storage on, Google, just to...
Right.
But I grew up, I don't know, I'm going to ask you guys, especially being photographers, I grew up with wall collages of family pictures. They weren't portraits per se. We couldn't afford family portraits, but they were snapshots or school pictures and things, and just all over the place. I know my husband's great grandmother in West Virginia had, I always like to call it a wall of Steve, because it was every picture from the time he was a newborn all the way up until he graduated from high school, and it was just all Steve.
Yeah.
I've read studies that show that kind of can boost a kid's self-esteem if they, if there are pictures of them and their family, because they kind of understand their place within that family structure, by seeing, okay, well, I belong in this family kind of thing. Anyway, being two mothers who obviously are photography enthusiasts, were there a lot of pictures hanging up on the walls growing up when you were kids, and then again when you were raising kids?
Yeah, I think in our family we had pictures everywhere.
Did you?
Yeah. My mom had a hutch, and she even had them on there, refrigerator, everywhere.
Right.
And you do. I remember kids saying, "Well, why was I in that picture?" One of the cousins or something.
Did you leave me out on
Where
purpose?
were you?
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have as many as I do.
Sure.
Yeah,
it became a competition, but it's kind of cool. It's part of remembering those things.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
Yeah,
it's a bonding thing.
And
what about with your kids? Did you have a lot of pictures?
Of course. Yeah. Do you have to take another picture, Mom?
Yes.
One more, please.
Right. No, my daughter makes fun of me because I'll say one more, and she's like, that means 20 more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I understand. What about you, Bea? Did you grow up with a lot of pictures?
We didn't have photography in our house. We had art.
You had art.
My mom, in fact, I was just expressing this to her the other day. I said, why I think I love art. I was so drawn to it is because you had all these pictures of Renoir or Picasso or Van Gogh prints, cheap prints that she bought probably at Macy's or something in a frame on the wall.
Right.
And then, I told her, some of those I've actually seen the real deal now that we live here in Washington, because you can go to the Smithsonian. And I remember one year Picasso, there was a great Picasso exhibit here. I think it was his blue period. And I walked into that exhibit, and there's this portrait of the boy with the dove. It's a Picasso early blue period. This little boy dressed in kind of a white gown of some kind with his dove. And I went, oh my God, my mom had that on the wall for years.
Never knew quite what it was, but now you do.
Yeah.
That's great.
So
art appreciation, visual appreciation, visual artistry. I mean, that's ever present.
Yeah. And I think that's really important. You can go into some people's homes and there's nothing. Right. It's all from God bless them, barrel and crate and barrel, decorative.
Sure.
Or IKEA. There's no original work.
Right.
There's nothing that tells you about them, although they might be a fabulous decorator.
Right.
They got this stuff and they got the money.
Yeah.
To make it all look great.
Right.
But there's nothing really personal about it.
Is that okay? So we're going to transition now. Is that kind of where the impetus came from to start Muddy Creek? Let's talk a little bit about that sort of. Because like you both were just saying, you've had this interest on and off most of your lives. And, 10 years ago, we're celebrating 10 years of the Muddy Creek Artists Guild. And both of you are founding members, correct? I mean,
founding mothers.
Founding mothers. There you go. I like that better.
There's another mother who's not here.
Okay.
Janet Goldberg.
Yeah. Okay.
And a father, Mike Dennis.
Okay.
And there's a few others.
Yeah.
But the four of us are still pretty active with Muddy Creek. The others have retired or moved away.
Yeah. I mean, what was the reasoning? Was it to kind of get more original art into homes, or what was your idea? Tell me a little bit about the history.
Well,
JoAnne?
Me and Bea did some exhibits together throughout the years, and
before Muddy Creek.
Before Muddy Creek.
Like, where would you go? Have to go to Annapolis and stuff?
No. We were in South County.
Okay.
We came upon it. It was an exhibit called Faces and Places. She traveled. I took pictures of my grandkids. Okay. So we had the opportunity of going to Discovery Village and having our first exhibit there.
Nice.
And it was great.
Discovery Village is this set of buildings back in Snug Harbor in Shadyside that was an instrumentation factory back in the 50s and 60s, and it sat vacant for a long time. It was a big brick structure, huge, covered whole campus on the water on Parish Creek.
Interesting. It's not still there.
It's still there.
It is still there.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And this man moved to Shadyside and found it and bought it. Englishman named Adam Hewison. He bought the whole thing.
Nice.
And his vision was to create kind of a lot of different things here, but he had this great wall space, and he was very entrepreneurial spirit. And he said, I want to have a gallery on this upper hallway. And next thing I know, we're hanging our photos on that hallway, and created his first show.
Thanks to JC, Bea's husband, put all our hanging stuff up. There was nothing to hang on. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so we went from there, and we did that show, and then we did. We decided to just go across South County, and with Bea's experience with the county people and where she worked, we had, and I had a lot of customers from South County, so we were invited in people's homes to take pictures of tobacco barns. And boy, did we learn a lot. Yeah. We learned a lot.
I mean, the tobacco barns in southern Anne Arundel County are like so many in southern Maryland, where tobacco is king, the king crop, are falling down. They're burning. They're getting hit by lightning, or their wind is blowing them over, and they're disappearing. A whole historic epic era is disappearing, and people don't know about it. So JoAnne and I kind of decided, let's go out and photograph everything we can find in southern Anne Arundel County. That was our focus, because we just couldn't do everything. You had to limit your focus. That's my problem all the time. I need to limit my focus. And actually, Calvert County and St. Mary's County were far ahead of Anne Arundel in cataloging their barns, because they had even older barns still in existence. So
I was going to say, the one barn photo that I have that you love, actually my brother, his dad grew up in Leonardtown in sort of that South County area, and he bought a big framed print of that for me probably 3 years ago, because it's kind of, he's like, it just reminds me of Maryland. It's just Maryland, you know what I mean? So it's funny how that can, even though it has obviously with tobacco and what that can, but it's still a huge part of our history and our commerce and all that.
But it really was, what was nice about it is that we met the people, but when we went to their farm, we're thinking we're going to take a couple shots of this barn, but we learned the history of the family. We weren't, what was inside the barn now, who kissed who in the barn, what animals were raised in the barn. I mean, it was just so many different things that went on in a barn that you would.
So it's funny. Somebody once told me that history is basically yesterday's gossip. And so it's funny how, like you're saying, they're telling us who kissed in the barn and stuff. I mean, that's the part of the history. You know what I mean? We think of like it being a rigid structured thing in your textbook, but history is the gossip or the stories that people told that are passed down from generation to generation.
And they would have more than one barn on there. We went to one farm and they had a barn, and the gentleman says to us, "Well, I remember when that barn was built, the footers. We laid the footers in the 60s. It was 1963 or something. It was probably older than that. His dad had a massive heart attack and died. But just every time we went somewhere, it was different. Somebody saw a shadow of their father doing tobacco right there. As we were looking through it, she said, I could see him now just doing it. Hanging it. And
and it's an interesting way of life to raise tobacco, which I knew nothing about. So we learned what a family had to do to grow tobacco, because it was a key crop. I mean, that's where they made their money. And it's the hardest crop.
It kills the soil.
It kills the soil, but it kills the body. And you have to cut it at a certain time. You have to hang it for so many weeks. You have to watch it carefully, and then you have to figure out, you're going to sell it. And for a long time, it was very easy to sell it. And then all of a sudden, everything, with the tobacco buyout, everything stopped. So, but there's still barns that are, if you walk in them today, they still smell like tobacco.
It's a tough smell to get out.
And it's a really sweet smell. It's different than cigarette smoke.
I agree.
It's really and it is addictive. You get in there and go, wow, it smells so good. But it's interesting to see how people have transformed their barns, the ones that they've kept, to be useful in another way. And that was kind of my push, that these are really important structures to save, and how can they be saved? And I have to say that our representative in Congress, Steny Hoyer, got tobacco barns put on the historic list as important architectural features in America.
Right.
And there was money put into a fund. If you had a barn, it was in a fairly public viewing area where public could see it from the road.
Right.
You could apply for a grant to help you restore the barn or save the barn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was 50-50. You had to come up with whatever it cost to do that roof. You had to come up with half of it. So I learned a lot about the tobacco barns in my new state.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, we met so many great people, and it opened other people's eyes. The Capital newspaper did a whole story on the tobacco barns, featuring, some of the photos we did, but their own too.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like opening the public's eye to, these are right by us. We drive by them every day.
Take them for granted, but
And, the last barn in Edgewater was up on the Lee Airport. There's still one on the proper Lee Airport, but the Lees owned the property across the street.
It's gone.
And I went up to take a picture of it. It was a beautiful barn. And in its place today are 3 mega mansions and a little strip mall with Starbucks on the end. Mm-hmm. And I just think, why couldn't they have saved that barn? Mm-hmm. That would have been the coolest thing to have
right there
in the mix with all this other stuff.
Yeah.
It was a perfectly good barn.
Yeah, not enough foresight.
But I documented it. I have a picture of it. So
there you go.
There you go.
It was once there. They can do that history project in a few years where, you see where it used to be, the holding up the picture in Berlin before and after the war or whatever. So real quick, I think I forgot to ask this. How did you two become friends? And then was this tobacco barn project, I think we were getting to how it kind of led to Muddy Creek, right?
We really got off track there.
Yeah,
we did.
Not a problem, but where did you guys meet?
Well, actually, my younger son met JoAnne first and got his hair cut. And he said, Mom, you should go meet JoAnne. You'd really like her.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
That's funny how that works.
Yeah.
So I made an appointment, and
from then on.
It's been over 20 years. I think.
Yeah. 25
maybe.
Okay, all right. It's great to have that kindred spirit, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're like, we'll do all right.
Well,
together.
we would, I'd go in and get my hair cut, and she would, she has all these cameras in her salon. If you come, you would love her salon.
Yeah.
Because she's got vintage cameras all around and some great black and white photos that go back to kind of Hollywood era of great photography, of taking pictures of the stars.
Yeah.
And so we talk about film, and we talk about taking pictures, and after the haircut, I'd look at more pictures.
Yeah.
And then I brought my camera in, and we talked about, well, we should go shooting together. I don't think we really did until
the tobacco barns.
Yeah. But at the same time, somebody eavesdropped on us and said, "You're going to have a show at Discovery Village? Oh, you're going to have a show at our museum." And after we had a second show that was successful, we both said, we should find a place and get some other photographers and have a little gallery. This was like 2008.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there were all these vacant spaces kind of popping up. 2008, remember, was kind of the crash again.
Yep.
And I said, well, I'll check one of these spaces out and see on Muddy Creek Road, see if we can afford it, see what it would cost. If 10 of us went in, 10 photographers, and we could split the rent, put up our work. So the rent was like $900 a month.
Okay.
Doesn't sound like a lot.
No, but
10 photographers, and we started doing the math, and everybody said, there's no way I can afford that. Even split 9-10 ways, I can't afford that.
Right.
Yeah. And who had the time?
Right.
Yeah, we were all working some other job.
Full-time jobs, yeah.
Right.
And we still wondered if we could sell photography enough every month to cover all our expenses.
Right.
So that idea lasted for about 30 days. But we're still talking about something. I said, you know what, maybe there's another business plan. So I went home and I thought about what kind of business plan could we have, and how would we draw customers, and we need other artists. We can't just be photographers. We need painters. We need maybe some pottery. that would attract other people,
Right.
and they would come in because they always buy pottery,
Right.
and they'd see our photos.
Right.
So we just we sat around and we said, well, let's just contact artists that we know. And then that's when Janet Goldberg came in the salon in a couple days, and I said, Janet, are you interested with your pottery? Would you want to do a guild?
Right.
And she said, yeah. And I said, well, contact B, or I'll give you a contact. And then it went from one extreme to the other. I think we had 28 people by the time we ran an ad in the paper. We had a meeting.
We did a call to artists.
In the paper, in the Capitol?
In the
or-
news, in the
Okay.
Capitol.
All right.
Actually, we had a little meeting in Janet's home just to kind of put ideas down on paper, and then we
Right.
decided to do the call to artists.
Okay.
And we got the hall over in Cedarhurst community, which is another community in Shadyside.
Right.
And we just sat in there, and all of a sudden there were 30-some people in the room.
Yeah.
People we'd never met,
Right,
for the
right.
most part. And we sat in a big circle, and everybody said what they did, who
Right.
they were, where they lived. And we had one of our members, early members' husband was a lawyer.
Okay.
And he said, I can draw up in corporation papers when you all decide what your name is going to be.
Right.
So everybody's kind of bantering around names. And I said, I think it's, Muddy Creek is like the main
Road.
drag out of Shadyside Deal Church. And everybody knows Muddy Creek Road.
Right. To get anywhere South County, I mean, for the most part. Yeah.
Muddy
Right.
Creek, yeah.
But there were a couple other names floated
Yeah,
around.
I
But
can't
Muddy
remember
Creek
what they
kind of
stuck.
stuck.
Yeah.
The next thing I know,
And it was always going to be guild.
Yes.
Is that like
It was-
the fancier term? Like enlighten an ignorant person when it comes to guild versus.
it just
group
sounded
versus-
good. I wasn't
Right.
real. I was, guild probably to a lot of people means like craftsmanship or artisans going back to the Middle Ages,
Right.
where they had the silversmiths and the goldsmiths guild or whatever guild it was.
Okay.
The wool guild, but it seemed kind of all encompassing.
Right.
And we wrote our bylaws to be fine arts, fine crafts. We didn't want the little crocheted doilies, but we wanted really good textiles.
Absolutely.
We didn't want the form pressed clay pot. We wanted a potter who worked on a wheel or did slab work or something like that.
Original artwork.
work.
Right.
We didn't want anybody who put things together from a kit. We wanted original work.
Right.
And we talked about it a lot.
In that original group, it was diverse, I assume. They were all different genres of.
Yeah, we had
Art.
jewelers, we had woodworkers.
Because obviously Mike's a jeweler, and he was a founding.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
We had sculptures.
Okay.
We had.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Oil painters.
every medium was represented.
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah.
and there were a lot of photographers, though.
Sure.
And a lot of painters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, the painters are quite diverse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Whether it's watercolor versus oil on canvas
Yeah.
versus all those other
And
things.
some watercolorists will say, I'm not a painter, I'm a
watercolor.
watercolor is drawing.
Right.
Drawing.
Ah. Okay.
To some people, it's drawing. It's
Yeah,
not paint.
it's
It's,
not
not,
painting.
considered. But we'll probably, people will react to that and say, "Well, she's wrong."
Right. Exactly. Everybody's got a
Got a
different opinion about
different
that.
opinion,
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That's interesting.
we met. That call to artists brought out 30 people, and
by that point, you knew that it just wasn't feasible to have an actual brick and mortar location by that point, but the group itself.
Yeah.
right, and
could
it
be
was
sustained.
kind of like, well, let's experiment. What if we rented a space, a community hall or something, and just put our work out there?
Right.
And there were people who had come who had experience showing work at
Which is
galleries,
invaluable, I'm sure.
Yeah.
and
that
had
helped
worked
out.
in co-op
Right.
type structures before.
Sure.
So there were a lot of guides
That
in the
is
group.
awesome.
A lot
You
of
need
guides.
that. Yeah. I mean, it's when you have the idea, it's great, but to have somebody. I'm a great ideas person, but to have somebody execute is always the.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
me. I'm kind of the idea person.
Right.
And when it comes down to figuring out the system
Uh-huh.
for making it happen, I mean, Janet Goldberg was our first treasurer.
Yeah.
And she had been involved with a pottery kind of group and knew how they were selling, how they kept track of inventory and, how to price things so
Sure.
your customer knows what the price is.
Right.
You got to put a tag on there. You just can't set it out there.
Right.
You know, there's all these other little details of selling that we weren't really thinking about, but we realized we needed to think about it, because now we're just not shooting pictures or painting pictures or making pots. We are marketing our work.
Yep.
And, you know, we were looking for, okay, what's the expertise in the room?
Yeah.
Who knows what?
Yeah.
And you need to teach the rest of us how to do this.
Sure.
And you know, within 2 months, we had rented a hall in Galesville, the Memorial Hall, and we put on our first show in June. Now, we were talking in the salon in probably December.
Wow. So it was that quick.
Yeah,
We were at
that's that
Janet's
quick.
house in February.
And we had
we incorporated by April.
Right.
And we had our show in June.
Wow. That's impressive.
And
obviously people were thirsting, it seems, for this kind of thing.
they were so excited. Yeah.
Right. They needed...
they were blown away. People were blown away.
Yeah.
Because they had no idea. And we had no idea.
And it's so
of
much...
the talent that existed in southern Anne Arundel County.
Right. The talent. And then also just to have other like-minded individuals and you know, people who... didn't know, you know what I mean? Like, they knew that they liked to paint, for instance, but like you were saying, for going beyond just doing it in your basement or room or whatever, to learning how to market it, learning how to sell it, learning how to present it, learning how to, you know what I mean? I'm sure that was, I know that for me as a former member, that was something, like, I knew how to make it, I knew that I liked it, I knew that, you know what I mean? I wanted to try and get it out, but...
We had a great learning experience because we had art that came in. Everybody brought all their art for our first show. We had walls. We had somebody bring in that one of our members that worked for what was
Center Stage.
Center Stage. She brought her walls in. She could stage anything, and she helped us. And everybody just learned. But we went from having art from the floor up to the ceiling and hanging off the ceiling to having it from 14 feet from the top of the wall, from 4 feet up, and just having it eye level.
Right.
And we just, it was just, we've learned so much. But to see an artist, in my view, is these artists came in and they never showed their work before. Nobody's ever seen it.
Right.
Just the idea that it was going to hang on a wall and people were coming to see it.
Yeah.
They didn't even care if they sold it, I don't think.
Sure.
It was just the idea it was there.
Yeah.
And I'm part of this.
Right, absolutely.
It's amazing. And
do you remember the gal, she was so excited, and she had just taken her first or second course at Anne Arundel Community College. She was newly divorced, and she was trying to find her way, and she took an art course, and she painted
oil painting, yeah.
She painted this huge floral thing. I mean, it was loud and big, and she hung it on the wall, and she was so excited about it. And on Sunday, the last day of the show, a guy came in and bought it all.
Wow.
And
It was wow.
she was crying.
I bet.
Yeah.
It was the first piece she'd ever shown,
Right.
and the first time she'd ever sold.
Yeah.
And it was just like, you could see she was totally transformed. Like, I can have a different life now.
Yeah.
I'm an artist.
Yeah,
I'm an artist.
I sold.
I
sold.
I sold something.
So, and obviously that first show was successful enough for you all to think we can do this. I mean, is that right?
It was like
I think we sold $20,000 worth of art
over 20,000 in 2 days.
in 2 days.
Yeah, I'd say that's encouraging.
Yeah.
And that was with probably, how many artists were
if
there?
we had 30.
30 artists were in that show.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we had photos, we had painting, we had pottery, we had clothing, we had jewelry,
And
we had sculptures.
Yeah.
Everything sold.
That is what I do love about Muddy Creek, I have to admit, is having all the different genres in one room together. And, the idea of possibly combining some of those. Like, I remember meeting a woman who did, not with Muddy Creek, but it was another woman in London town. She did the stained glass. And I was like, wouldn't that be cool to have like a stained glass frame around one of my pictures? You know what I mean? Things like that where you can combine the different things. And I that's what I love about Muddy Creek, is that maybe not so much a part of, there hasn't been a lot of the combination and the collaboration in that respect with different mediums, but you're all in the same room. You get inspiration from, a painter may get inspiration from a photographer, a jewelry maker may get inspired by, a clay maker. It's all that,
Well, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
That is still happening. I mean,
Yeah.
we're celebrating our 10th anniversary this year, and the collaboration that's occurred over the years is really very satisfying to me. I mean,
It's amazing, really, when you think
when
about
I
it.
look at the little spin-offs from Muddy Creek that have happened,
Right.
and they're still members, but they now have their own businesses where we have 2 women who've become partners in selling a line of clothing together.
Yeah.
And they both started in doing something else, but they found their way to making these beautiful fabrics, and then making clothes, and then finding a way to market them.
Right.
And they're doing great.
Nice.
And then, there was a jeweler who has her own bead shop in Edgewater now,
Okay. Very nice.
Michelle Tango.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, she was established as a bead and jewelry maker when she came into the guild, and she was with the guild for a short period of time, but next thing I know, she said, I'm opening my own bead shop. I said, you're going to make it on beads? Wow.
Hey.
But
Yeah, passion for it.
she's thriving.
That's awesome. Yeah. I was going to ask of the original 30 who came to that meeting, how many are still with you? How many are still part of the group? Maybe
Half of them.
About half of them.
Yeah.
And the other half have moved away. I think they're all alive.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we do have some members who've died, over the years that, they were members, and we remember them well. And
Right.
in fact,
Do you remember everybody who's been through the guild?
well, I
Kind
don't,
of.
I don't,
Right,
I don't
right.
know a lot of the members now because I'm a little bit removed. I was
Sure.
president for 6 years.
You were, yes.
And we're going to be on our 4th president here this spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of the membership I don't know
As
very
well
well
right now.
now, but
Yeah.
the early members, a lot of them have moved away.
Okay.
But we're still in touch, and we're hoping some of them will be able to come from wherever they are to our 10th anniversary show.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit. So,
Yeah.
give me the dates for the 10th anniversary show, please.
Well, it'll be in May.
Okay.
It's the Mother's Day weekend, and the next weekend it'll be in Edgewater.
Yep. At the
And it's
the
in
old
a vacant
Blockbuster.
building.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
in a vacant space in the Main Street shops in Edgewater, it won't be the Blockbuster
On the end.
shop on the end.
Oh, not that one anymore.
No,
it's
it's
in
in
the
the middle.
Oh.
On the
okay.
same side.
In
I
the
guess
middle
it's been a while.
of that. And it's a very, very nice space.
Nice.
The holiday show was held there
Okay.
in December.
Okay.
And it's painted a little nicer. The Blockbusters, if you remember, they're all yellow and green.
Right. Right.
Horrible
The color
colors
cast.
for an art show,
Sure.
but it added something,
Right,
eclectic craziness
Okay.
to our background. But
Yeah.
this space has really nice lighting, and the walls are painted a nice color for a backdrop.
Yeah.
Nice.
We have a red and green room.
And what's the red and green room?
That is the red and green room.
Oh, it's
The
just
building
the
was
painted-
painted red, and the carpet was green.
Gotcha. Oh, it's
It was
very
like
Christmassy
yeah,
kind of.
it was
Okay.
perfect for our holiday show.
Interesting. Yeah, I bet it was. I bet it was. And so it's a 10th anniversary show. Is there, I mean, I know that you were inviting back older members. Was that kind of like you wanted to make sure that you reached out to everybody who's been through? I mean, is that kind of, was there any other ideas going as far as what you wanted to do to celebrate 10 years? Because that is, I mean, it's a hell of an achievement after 10 years.
Yeah.
Does it feel like 10 years, by the way, or does it?
No, it went by pretty fast, but I
Yeah.
think, and inviting all the members that were ever had their artwork, we're trying to reach out to them to get the artwork to us. If they can't make it, we
Right.
want to hang a piece or two of their artwork.
Yeah.
Just to have it there and represent what we are,
Right.
that we also throughout the years have not only had art, but we've had artists as far as musicians come that volunteer to play for us,
Yeah.
and they just come in a lot of music and a lot
Right.
of food and
Lots of good food.
reception and wine, and I just think the whole thing together. But this celebration we're going to have a party. We're going to incorporate all the artists together and have a really nice.
Yeah, and we're going to do a little timeline of what we've achieved in 10 years.
Yeah.
We've identified over 200 artists in South County who paid dues to Muddy Creek Artists
Wow.
Guild. the constant numbers around 80, 90 members that are active.
Right.
But over 200 people that we didn't even know each other.
Yeah.
And now we know of each other,
Right.
and
The friendships and the, just
There-
helping each other.
There have been a lot of bonds formed
Yeah.
through this
Well,
guild.
I think all of us are. You were a member.
Yeah,
and-
absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it kind of like Bea, where I regret not being able to be more part of it. But I'm one of those people that if I'm going to be part of something, I'm going to be part 110%,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And living up here definitely has prevented
well,
me
you
from
were
being...
a big participant and contributed a lot when you were
Yeah,
an
Yeah.
active
and
member.
that's what I would love to continue
Yeah.
to be doing for
Yeah.
sure. I actually regret that they don't have something as cool up here. I mean, they have some guilds up here for sure, but nothing as cool as Muddy Creek.
Yeah,
so.
well, it is unique.
Yeah.
But the show is going to be kind of we're going to do a historic timeline. JoAnne has taken all these great photos over the years of the shows.
And how they came apart and what's different and
Yeah,
how
that's what I
they
was
look
going to ask.
and
Yeah.
what
I'm
our
sure-
expectations are now compared to
Right.
what we did. I mean, we
Right,
had
right.
one point when we began, and we had our second show. We had names for our show. Our first show in the spring was always Artist on the Half Shell. Our fall show was Gifts, Harvest of the Artist. Harvest of the Artist, and
Right.
then our Gifts from the Artist, Gifts from the Arts.
Different arts, right?
Yeah.
December show.
It was our
Right.
December show,
Yeah.
and I remember our second show. We had the Blockbuster off of Deal Churchton Road, and it was a huge spot, and we couldn't really hold. We just had so much art. Number one, we had artists, and a lot of people were bringing in the art left and right, but we had to. They asked us not to put any holes in the walls.
Okay.
We could use the existing holes. So I remember we came up with. We might have had 75 to 100 tobacco sticks that we recreated in the holes that were there, and then we hung all the artwork we could on that. But it was just we had people that brought in artwork that was just. They took it right off their wall.
Right.
Because it was covered.
Right.
We had murals. It was just fabulous. We had
It's like
music.
a salon
It was just
exhibit.
Right. Oh, well, and that's what I was going to ask. Looking through these past, shows, I'm sure the professionalism,
It's different.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
We've learned a lot.
Right,
We've
exactly.
learned a lot.
Exactly.
Well, we had a member who joined who had owned a gallery in D.C.
Yeah.
And
He just-
we turned everything over to him.
Yep. Exactly.
And
You're
all
like,
of a sudden, the
show me the way.
looked really improved.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great to be able to. They always say two heads are better than one, and then same with the group, and you get to pick the brains of so many different varied.
Oh yeah. And from going from an open show, or I'm not sure if that's what they call it, but we had artists that that were familiar with setting up a gallery show where we hung artwork all over that was all artists in different, and then we had artists that just had their own wall that was combined.
Right.
And the fact that we would have a wall of just color, it would be anything, but it was the color coordination.
Right.
And it just, if you look at the pictures and see the difference, have we grown? It's just amazing.
I bet. Is there? You had mentioned hanging on the walls and things like that. What have you learned? What's kind of remained similar since when you first started, and what's completely different? And also, that was the other question. When did the standards? How quickly into it did you say we got to have some standards here? How quickly did that process?
Well, I can tell you the standards was a huge discussion because we have artists members who are professional,
right?
Who hang in galleries,
Yes,
and they know the standard of the gallery they hang in.
Yes,
and no cracked frames,
right.
Clean glass,
Right.
Dust covers on the back,
Right.
Yeah.
and it can't fall apart in the customer's hands, folks. It's got
And it has to have a wire.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
No
wire.
claw hooks on the back. It has to be wired.
Right.
We've improved greatly.
But I'm sure that came quickly though. When you were 2 or 3 shows in, you were like,
we were segmenting it into mediums. So the jewelers had to kind of take care of the jewelers and make sure nobody's using stuff that says made in Japan or made in China on part. It all had to be original.
Right.
The painters were working together. The photographers were working together. The sculptors we never knew what the sculptures were going to look like.
Sure.
And we figured, we had this guy in Shadyside, Hugh Cassidy, who created these great iron pieces out of found art.
Yes.
And he welded everything together. And,
Yes.
and you
I
could
remember.
barely carry it in the door.
Yes.
You weren't worried about it falling apart.
Sure.
But
I know some of what Naomi's the stained glass pieces. Some of those are ginormously
Oh,
huge.
yeah,
the
and
window.
heavy.
yeah, and so well built.
Yeah.
So the standards. Getting back to the business of running an art company.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
You have to have standards.
Absolutely.
Or else, people are going to talk about that work is crap. It falls.
Right.
The frame fell apart when I hung it on the wall at home.
Right.
And I would talk about this a lot ad nauseum.
Yeah.
Like, if your piece falls apart because you were too cheap to buy a good frame for it,
Right.
shame on you.
Right.
Because your customer is never going to buy another piece from you.
Exactly. And how are you going to expect them to spend the money on that piece if you can't
Right.
even be bothered to invest
Right.
in the quality?
And
of
have it look as good.
Right, exactly. So I know that one of the things that you have done over the last 10 years that I participate in, you're very community oriented and involved. I know you have your highway sponsorship. You do the pickup along Muddy Creek Road. Let's talk a little bit about the Elks program, where you bring some of the local high school and middle school kids to learn about photography.
Yeah, I'm on outreach, and I am an Elk member, and we were able in our deal area to become part of their, to qualify to do grants.
Right.
And I just thought it would be great to put in for a grant. It's called a Beacon Grant, and it is to do something. All of their grants are for community service.
Right.
And Janet Goldberg was a big help in that, because she's taught a lot about grants and just go for it.
Right.
And I kind of did. I don't write grants, but we had a grant writer there, and she said, well, let's do it. We've never had grants out of this particular elk and lodge. And I said, okay. So I laughed, because I literally went to Janet and I said, okay, Janet, I have an opportunity to do this. And I just said, this is what I'm going to do. And then I looked at her and I said, well, you write it up for me. And she looked at me, she said, no, just tell them what you just told me. You'll be fine.
Right.
And I did it, and we got the grant, we wrote it. And the grant was $2,000 that we got. And what we did is we had a photography program, and we named it the Elkie Artist.
Right.
And we incorporated, the first year we did middle school, and we had, I think we had 9 middle school. We bought cameras with it. We bought a printer with it. We had communities come help. They set up computers, D-millers for us. And it was a great success. I think the kids, just watching the kids are giving them the direction that they can be positive for something in their life, I think, and they just absorbed it like little sponge.
Right.
And you were there. You mentored with the kids and took them out, and it was just a fabulous opportunity. And my goal is that we have this community hall there that is really not being used for a community hall.
Right.
And I just think between art and having that available, we can have something. We do a program called We Do Art there.
You do art, yep.
Also.
And that's where somebody instructs you how
Yeah, they
to...
actually teach us. We have some of the artists will come in, and we probably have 6 of them now.
Okay.
And the Elks are very grateful letting us use the lodge, and they let us have it on an evening that they're not so busy.
Sure.
So it's incorporating people to the lodge,
Right.
letting them know it's there.
And I was going to say, not necessarily people who have been there before.
Right,
Or,
and
yep.
there's a charge. There's a little bit of food, but we have an artist there. We have all the setup. We set up tables. We usually have about 40 people that participate. It's just been a great success, and it's not a sip and paint thing.
Right.
It's actually they're getting they have the opportunity to buy the supplies if they want to continue from felting to painting to. Oh my gosh, we made 6 scarves and we did it out of shaving cream. It was wild.
Wow.
It was great, but the Elks Lodge loves it. It's just fabulous. I mean, they're asking me now, when are we doing? We had some building issues and they're fixing them up, but it's just been a great opportunity, and I really foresee us as Muddy Creek using that and connecting and getting the grants and having a really opportunity to do a different type of art other than photography.
Right.
If we have 20 kids with photography and we have 10 kids here with painting and some pottery.
Yeah.
And they're paying us. They're
Right.
giving us grants to help these children.
do
Just, yeah.
Well, I mean, and just like we were talking about before, the formation of your friendship, the bonding that you guys shared when you met and realized you had a common interest, sort of the common interest and the way everybody was bonded when Muddy Creek first became an entity. I mean, art bonds people together. And even if you're not the same kind of artist, you can still, I mean, Steve, my husband, is not a photographer, but he is an amazing, pen and ink, artist. I get so inspired by him. I'll see him do something. I'll be like, I wonder if I could do that. So it's great because, we were all grown-ups when we discovered each other at Muddy Creek. These are kids, and some of them, this could really
change their direction.
Yeah, exactly. Change the trajectory from something that maybe isn't ideal or, you would want better for them. And then they discover art and they realize, I didn't even know this thing existed. Now I know, and now I'm going to go down this path.
What's really fascinating to me is that our first photo camp, the parents dropped their kids off. We said, just drop them off.
Yeah.
They came in to meet us, check us out.
Sure.
But they knew us by and large.
Yeah.
And I said, come back at 4:00 and pick up your kids.
Yeah.
And in 2 weekends, we'll have the show. So it was 3 weekends. And that first weekend, we did the photo shoot, walking around.
Yep.
And taught the kids about using the computer to print out your photo and edit and look at your photos, right? And the parents really
Which I think was their favorite part, by the way. I think the computer time was definitely...
Yeah, they really loved that. They really did.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of their world, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
I think they taught me a few things,
I was going to say.
remember. Yeah.
but their parents really had no idea what we were doing with them. It was just something the kid applied for.
Right.
It was encouraged. Oh, you want to do this?
Yeah, because what did you do? Go through the schools, right?
Well, we did. It's hard to go through the schools now because they're very protective of getting in the front door, and you can't have every organization approaching them. So we did go to some of the churches, the local churches and stuff, and we're trying to reach out. And now we have people coming to us. When is that?
Right.
When are you going to?
Now
have
your name
that?
has gotten out there.
Yeah.
Because this is what, third year?
This will
fourth
be
year?
the third year coming up.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
And the thing is that these kids came, and I think they were just as excited. And not only did we teach them that, is, we had our first day, like Bea said, and then that day that they went home, they were able to take a camera with them.
Yeah, and
And they had
so cool.
that whole week to finish up their
Yeah.
10 items they did. And when they came back, they got to process them and tell us. They wrote an essay. They wrote essays.
Okay.
And to read their essays and what it meant to them. And then to have a grand show on 2 weeks later and have walls and a gallery. And they dressed up and they had to sell their cards and the stuff on the wall and interact with the people.
Yeah.
But I think the main thing that kids that they just the ability to the parents were even struck by this, that they were given a camera. It just taught them responsibility.
Yep.
And that they were responsible for somebody else's property, not their parents.
Right.
And we trusted them.
Yeah.
And we expected this from you.
Right.
And I
That's
think
true.
that's a big deal.
We're
it's a
talking
little
about
thing.
adolescents, middle school kids.
Right. Well, that's
and
I was going to say, I worked with a superintendent once who told me that kids will try and reach what the goal that you set for them. They're so if you set that goal low, they're not gonna try and go higher than that. So if you set the bar high and they realize, okay, this is an expectation of me, then typically, I mean, there's exceptions to that rule, but typically kids, even in that adolescent iffy phase, will be responsible, and especially when it's not their parents. Obviously we all know that kids. They don't mind destroying their parents' stuff, but when it's somebody else's stuff.
But it was an opportunity, and they did to see them. And I think the parents were like, "What? You're going to let them take?
You're going to trust them?" I was too.
Yeah.
Frankly, when I was like, "You're letting them take that home?"
Yeah. And they all brought it back. They all brought it back in great condition.
Oh, I remember seeing many of the cats from home. Pictures they would show.
Yeah.
Oh, look at my cat.
Whatever. And they did. Yeah. It was great.
That's
it was
awesome. Yeah, that was a good experience.
And it just has been a great experience. And I think everybody at the lodge, weren't sure, like Bea said, what we were doing and what the outcome was.
Right.
And our first one, I don't. Did you come to? You didn't come to the.
I didn't come to the show. I think I came to everything but the show, unfortunately.
Right. And the show consists of the walls. We hung the art. And what we did is we took and we framed it, and the artwork were for sale, and the frame pictures were $20 each.
Right.
And we had some members set up, and they had a little pay thing, just like we would do our Muddy Creek Artists Guild.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And the kids made their own cards, and they got to keep the proceeds for that, so they could make a little money.
Right.
And all the money that we made, we put back into the program so that we could apply for grants again.
Right.
And then the second year we did it, and we had a few more children. And what we did there, I think the first one we did $560 we sold.
Wow.
Just that went back.
Still pretty good.
And then this last show we did 800 and something.
Nice. Very
And
nice.
we knew now what we do now is we take orders. If somebody walks in and they want that picture on the wall, but somebody already bought it, we put sold on it, then they'll order it.
Oh.
They'll take orders, but
So you
because
can-
we have the frames donated and the mats, we
Right.
just tell them, you can order it, but you might not get that.
I guess we should give a plug to who you get those frames and mats donated from.
Yeah.
Whimsy Cove.
Whimsy
Cove,
Cove,
yeah.
Elizabeth Ramirez.
She's been a member for a lot of years, hasn't she?
Yes, she was one of the early members. She was a patron. She thought she was going to be an artist member,
Okay.
but she had the frame shop
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
all use. so-
Invaluable, that partnership.
And she's a good business model for
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
I mean, she really helped a lot of us figure out how to frame our work.
And taught us how to do it, yeah.
You know,
'Cause a lot of us-
matting and framing. I hate doing that.
Yeah, me too.
And the fact that we had the computers, Dee Miller that's right there, and Deal, they were just grateful. They came and sent their guy up, and they set
Right.
all the computers
Nice.
up, and
Yeah.
they put the program. It was
Because
just Picasso.
they see how this is important too. They
Yeah,
understand
I
the
think-
importance.
yeah.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
So-
that leads to the other businesses that really were very supportive
Yeah.
of Muddy Creek Artist Guild from the get-go, because we couldn't have done what we did without the space.
Right.
So early on, you know, the Blockbuster in Deal was given to us for free
Wow.
by the two businessmen, Jim Weaver and John Petro.
Okay.
No, it's not John. It's oh, he'll hate me if he hears this podcast. But Mr. Petro,
Yes.
they own that building,
Pete. No.
and they said, "Go ahead and use it. Just use it." So we had it
Nice.
for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and then Tri-State Marine in Deal opened up.
Tom Maganoff, he allowed us
He
to
said,
use
"I'd
his
love to have
marina.
an art show in our boat showroom." And I
Right.
said, "Really?
Yeah, yeah.
How do we
did.
do that?"
That was, it rocked.
Oh,
they
yeah.
moved all the boats out, and we cleaned the windows. We
That's
did,
great.
you know.
I imagine those are invaluable. That's what got you off the ground, I would assume.
Oh, yeah.
And our members they marched in with all our walls, and we
Yeah.
created
and they're
a
like,
gallery.
We're in a marina? What is this? And it
Right.
was a
Yeah.
huge room, and it had, they moved the boats out. It was kind of collective in its own way. It was just unique. And
then there was Green Street
Yeah,
Gardens,
Green Street
Gardens, they
in
were great.
Lothian.
Yes.
Ray and Stacy just opened up the big greenhouse, and we were there for our fall show.
I was going to say, did you only do the one show there?
Oh no, we did
A
several
few, I
shows
thought,
there,
Yeah. I thought
and we
so.
always did it like between September and November,
Yeah.
thinking it's prime time to be in there. And the day of setup, that greenhouse was 110 degrees in there, and the hanging committee was swearing left and right.
Right.
This is the last show I'm hanging in this greenhouse. But we had a great
Show.
support there,
Yeah.
and great turnout.
Yeah.
And Ray and Stacy were so supportive,
Yep, I
and
remember.
they bought a lot of artwork.
Yeah,
And Ray's
I remember.
always looking around like, I need another piece of art for my
Yeah,
office.
that's great.
And then there was the Galesville community.
Uh-huh. Do you
that-
still meet there?
We still meet in Galesville. We meet in the old school that's been transformed there. We used to meet in the Memorial Hall, and we've met in different places.
Okay.
But we had our first show there in the Memorial Hall, which is a veterans dedicated to veterans of World War One.
Oh,
And it was renovated, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful space.
Yeah.
But we outgrew it.
Yes.
But
That's a nice feeling to have. It's a nice, good problem to have.
Yeah.
We're just too big for it now.
we even had a show, and this is Elizabeth Ramirez, getting back to her. She made a contact with the guy who has a car dealership on West Street. It was Fiat and
I can't remember.
Anyway, we moved into this car showroom where there were, $80,000 sports cars, and we built the show around it.
That's cool.
That
unique.
was really the first time we went to Annapolis, because I was a proponent
Yes.
of keeping the art south of South River,
Yes.
because there are plenty of galleries in Annapolis.
Exactly.
We had one gallery in South County.
Right.
Muddy Creek was creating a little gallery in the least expected place
Sure.
with its shows 3 times a year, and that's really what I wanted
Well, and
to
you-
see happen.
And I was going to say, and you must have succeeded, because I know several people who are in Annapolis that were like, we can't do it. And I'm like, haha. You know what I mean? Like, they wanted to come, they obviously they have their opportunities in
Right.
Annapolis, but they still wanted to come to South County and,
yeah.
and do the Muddy Creek shows and stuff. So, I mean, that's definitely, especially
Yeah.
when you're in a town like Annapolis, which is so art-centric and very, like you said, there's kind of a gallery everywhere. And that's what I was going to say. Elizabeth has since moved from South County to Annapolis.
yeah.
And I know
with her
she's
business.
Yeah, and she's involved with like the Annapolis Art Alliance and stuff like that too,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
No, she's a great proponent.
Yeah.
She's a great patron of the arts. She's a matron of the arts.
Matron, exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
let's use those feminist terms, ladies.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, that's and I know, like I said, you do the trash pickup along Muddy Creeks. I know there's other stuff that you guys have done. Like the scholarship. Let's talk about the scholarship. The scholarship,
well,
I think,
yeah,
is great.
Yeah.
From the get-go, when we incorporated, we said that we would give a percentage of our annual profit as the guild
Okay.
to create money, a fund for scholarships for kids studying art in college. And our first idea was to give a couple scholarships a year to seniors graduating and going to an art school from Southern and South River high schools. And we did that for 3 or 4 years. We gave $1,000, up to $1,000 for a student going to, and they were going everywhere. They're going to MICA, they were going to Rhode Island School of Design, they were going to Savannah College of Art.
Wow.
I was astounded at the art scholarship coming out of our 2 high schools.
Yeah.
South River.
But then we kind of felt like the other schools are doing amazing art also,
Sure.
and we kind of transitioned to not giving money to one student, but giving it to the art department at the middle school.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then last year
was our biggest. We had, we did the elementary schools, and there's 9 elementary schools in the South County area. And what we did is we have our baskets that are done beautiful with. Now they're photography baskets, they're oil baskets, they have plenty of our artwork in it, and the artists donate. But now we have
we raffle those off.
we
at our
raffled
shows.
them off, and what we did is we bought canvases and we took them to each of the art teacher in each of the area, the 9.
Yeah.
And they made whatever you want. Just give us a piece of artwork.
Yeah.
And then what we did is we took those and hung them on the wall, and then we also raffled them.
Their students painted the
The
canvases.
students, the classes did a theme, and they were fabulous.
Yeah.
And we also did them as the raffle with the baskets, and you could put your ticket in the box next to it.
Yeah.
And we were able to give each art teacher $580 times 9.
Wow.
To go towards those.
Nice.
Yeah, it was very nice.
And $580, that is huge for
To an art
schools.
teacher.
Yeah, that is definitely.
And that was elementary.
Yeah.
So they could purchase whatever they wanted. They went to the
Whatever they
art.
did. Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Well-
And it's fabulous because that was over almost $5,800 worth of
Why'd you
money
guys,
we raised.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, you guys got into this for the art. I mean, when did that philanthropy
that
sort
was
of...
from the
It was
That
just
was
give
from the
back.
get-go.
Give
Yeah.
back to the community because I feel
Right.
like here we have all these artists and when we have a show, it's just amazing how many people come in.
Right.
They support us.
Yeah.
They're supporting artists, and why can't we support back
Right.
to the community? You know, they are supporting us.
You are giving scholarships to future Muddy Creek members, right? I mean, in a sense,
Yeah.
yeah. You know,
Yeah.
they go away, they get their art degrees and come back
back.
and make
Yeah.
art in Annapolis and
Well, we were
Edgewater.
also able to establish a memorial fund in the name of one of our deceased members whose family offered her paintings. Denise Henderson's family offered her paintings for sale at our show to go to building a scholarship at Anne Arundel Community College
Right.
for art students, educators. Let's see, students in art education, and art was pretty broad.
Okay, yeah.
And so we established that with, I think, about $5,000 initially from the sale of her paintings.
Wow.
And gifts from her family and friends in her name.
Yeah.
And every year we continue to contribute from the proceeds we make to that scholarship. So we're now in the 4th year of giving a full ride for 1 year to a student studying art or architecture or education at community college.
Yeah.
And,
That's great.
Anne Arundel Community College is one of the best community colleges in the state.
Absolutely.
And highly ranked in the country.
Harvard on the Magathie.
It really is. I
like that.
Harvard on the Magathie. That's what we
Both
always
my
used to call it.
sons went through there on their way to
My
other
husband
places.
did too. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for $1,000 or $2,000 a year, a student can get their tuition fully paid for
Yeah.
at the community college. What a deal.
What a huge deal. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're very proud of that
Yeah.
we were able to do that. And the reason we're able to do that is that we don't have the brick and mortar store and had to pay
The overhead.
the overhead.
Right.
And our commission for our artists
Right.
is very high.
Yeah.
The Guild takes only 15%
Right.
of the sale of any one piece of art.
Yeah.
The main thrust here was always for the artists to make money
Yeah.
and to have a place where they could show their work without having to be juried in per se by their art. We never said your work isn't good enough. What we said was you have to be original. And you have to show us what you're doing.
Right.
And then you have to live here in South County,
Yeah.
or you have to work here in South County to be eligible to be a member.
Right.
But once you're in,
You're in.
you're in.
Right.
So if you move to Dundalk, you're
Should still be in. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you can still be a member.
We talked a little bit about the in my opinion, huge success of that first show and kind of what the money brought in. Can you tell me a little bit about the biggest selling show you've had? What show has it been over the last 10 years? And I guess what kind of money did we...
Well, I would say over a 10-year period,
Oh, that's true. Cumulatively, yeah.
Yeah, we've sold over $400,000 worth of local art.
All South County?
Or more.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Our last show we just had was our biggest, and I think we
Is
sold-
that right? Do you find that that's happening where each year it gets maybe a little bit...
Well, it kind of follows the economy, too. You can
sure.
kind of see
Because we're a luxury
ebbs
service.
and flows.
Yeah.
But,
I think with
we
our
live in a wealthy area.
Right.
Yeah, our scholarship and the show sales of that, it was probably close to $30,000 in 2 weekends.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and how many galleries are selling that many pieces that equal 30,000? I mean, we're talking about the majority of artists at a show selling something.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's even more amazing because it's not like we are... I mean, some of it's very pricey, but on the whole, it's not a high-end DC sort of, each piece is 1,000, so you're selling 30 pieces for that
Right.
30. It's each piece, I mean, 500 and under, I would say, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Yeah.
And to still be able to get
Right.
15% of... That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it'd be a holiday show where people are buying gifts for other people. So it's...
Do you find the holiday shows definitely do a little bit better than maybe
I
the
think
spring?
the holiday shows are nice because it is gift oriented and people aren't going to buy a piece of artwork for, majority. They're buying a piece of jewelry or a small gift or cards or,
pottery,
ceramics, just something, or a piece of small artwork.
Textiles go
Yeah.
really big.
So I think the artists concentrate on that for our holiday show, and then on the other shows they maybe don't, but they do. I think we still have the same.
Well, it's part of the business, knowing your customer and knowing your price points. And I always stressed have a range of price points, so that you sell something.
Yeah,
because you still, you want to sell. You just don't want to show your work.
Right. Absolutely.
You want to sell, and you also want feedback.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most valuable thing.
Yeah.
Because if you don't sell anything for a couple shows, then what's the issue here? Your price is too high? Is your work not
what it needs to be
appealing? And at the same time, you're having this internal argument with yourself. Do I want to create art to sell to the person who wants that to match their living room? Or do I want to sell my art that speaks to me and I want people to know who I am as an artist? And I think, we have that debate within ourselves all the time because you do want to sell, but I'm not going to bastardize my work to sell it. It's like, this is what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
And if you don't support it, if you don't like it, okay, then I'll figure that out as I'm developing as an artist, that it's okay.
Right.
It's okay. It'll hang on my wall. I like it. Or it's really not good. It's really not good. I decided it's really
Not good.
horrible.
Yeah, I could have did
We've all
it
gone
better.
through that,
I could have
right.
did it. And I think, it's amazing because the art that goes up, and everybody's so individual, and what you see and what the other person sees, somebody seeing might not appreciate that, but it's still art to you.
Right.
So whether it's a prison, whether it's a church, whether it's in photography, it all sells. From a squirrel, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It's in the eye of the beholder who's buying it.
Yeah.
And who would think that, you put artwork up and you think, oh, I do trains, and I've sold a lot of trains, and the trains are kind of like, they have history. So the
Like
majority,
like the barns.
in the barns too, the majority of the people buy a train picture.
Yeah.
They bought it, or they bought it and wanted it because it was a part of history in their family. Either
Right.
their grandfather or their uncle or their great grandfather was something to do with trains.
Right.
It was memorable to them.
Well,
and I think that's anything.
Right. That's what I was going to say. It's subjective. Absolutely. Everybody sees something differently. But, what I intended for a particular picture isn't necessarily what somebody else is going to see in that particular picture. So, I mean, I've sold pictures of downtown Annapolis thinking, it's a great shot of Church Circle. But meanwhile, somebody's like, my dad used to live in this little apartment right here on West Street. You know what I mean? And that's why they bought that piece, because that specific thing. I never would have intended that initially.
I shot the Philadelphia State Penitentiary in Eastern, I guess it is. And I laughed because I did sell a lot of them, and I actually won an award for them at the show because the judge said that I made the jail look pretty. Okay, so I made it look pretty because the frames, I think, I don't know.
Right. It had that artistic
pastel matting, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's funny how you said that memory, that little window. That's why I bought it.
Yes.
And it's funny because I said they have a memory, and I did have a client that came in, and he was doing a lot of history, and he saw the penitentiary, and he says, "Oh my gosh!" He said, "I'm going to buy one of these and send it to my family because my great grandfather was in that prison."
Oh my goodness!
How about that story,
man?
Yeah,
That's
I was
hilarious.
like, what?
Uncle Joe.
right? Well,
Isn't that amazing?
So 10 years, that is definitely amazing. 10 years have gone by, and I know that you guys aren't finished yet. I mean, there's got to be something you are cooking up in the minds for going forward for the next 10 plus years. I mean, what are your thoughts on the future? I know it's hard to think too far ahead because you've got a show coming up in May. Obviously, you always have your holiday shows and things and your meetings and all your philanthropy work. What are you thinking about for next year and the year after and so forth?
Well, I think we're doing the studio art tour now. We have a lot of the artists that open up their studio to the public. We have, 15 maybe artists on that tour now, and that's something that's growing. Yeah. And I think the community and outreach to the kids, I really want to see that grow. That's my goal and my passion for that. Because, seeing the artists when they come in and they're new, whether they're kids or, we don't have kids there, but doing the programs.
Sure. Yeah.
I think it's just amazing. And I remember it myself, hanging something on the wall and people actually buying it.
Yeah.
It's just such a great, it's Yeah,
You're in that awkward stage of teenage years. That is a huge
and these
thing.
kids just, maybe they will become our Muddy Creek.
Yeah, it's like, my hope is that it continues. It all depends on who goes to our Facebook page or goes to our website or comes to our show and says, I want to be part of this.
Yeah.
And we do need to always be looking for the newest crop of artists who are bringing in exciting new ideas and new techniques and, that are trained or self-trained.
Right.
Whoever they are, we need to keep growing not only the artist community, but the leadership in the artist community.
Right.
And that's probably the most difficult
I was
thing
gonna say.
is developing and keeping the leadership going.
Because as you know, it's a lot of commitment.
It is.
It's a huge commitment, and it takes time away from your artistry to be
the business side of
the
things.
business side, the managing side, the board side of any organization. It takes you away from
creating
what you're supposed to, what you think you're doing.
Yeah.
I know. I really for 6 years as president, I didn't do as much photography as I thought I would do.
Sure.
Because I was so excited by what I was seeing. I was really interested in the other painters and the printmakers and the potters, and I, it's just like, I want to know about this. I've forgotten it. I studied this,
Right.
but I went off in photography, so I wanted to go back and explore that.
Right.
And now that I'm retired, I'm getting to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping, I can swing back around and come back into Muddy Creek more inspired and maybe have a different direction.
Yeah.
But I want to see that leadership continue to grow
Right.
within the most active members now.
Right.
There are people there that need to rise up and say, I want to help grow this guild.
Yeah.
To keep it going.
Right.
I mean,
Well, we've just relied on you this whole,
I
you
know.
founders. I mean, you guys have done such a good job. You know what I mean?
there's some great people.
Well,
in
yeah,
there.
there has been.
There-
and
Absolutely,
there
I'm
is.
sure.
But it's getting them to understand that, okay, we need you to do this.
Yeah.
We need you to take on a leadership role here.
Right.
And it means you may have to have a little time away from what you really want to do with your art.
Right.
But it's not forever.
Right.
It's like, I was there for a long time, and I finally said, I got to stop.
Right.
At a certain point, you cannot be the president. You have to let other people do it.
Yeah. I think that's actually when I came in was I remember your last meeting as president. That was my first meeting, I think. And then Jen
Yeah.
Hines
Right.
took over.
Jen Hines.
That was
Yeah.
when I came in. I do remember that meeting. So, but yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, you started it. It's your baby still. I'm sure both of you consider this somewhat
Yeah,
like a
it's
baby you've
very
nurtured over
important.
the last.
It's very important to us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as far as now, though, you're trying to build up the leadership. Are you ladies going anywhere anytime soon as far as not being around, the guild anymore? Or you're?
I'm not.
I was going to say, I know you're a bit far away, Bea, but I know you're involved still.
I'm involved. I'm still
Yeah.
a member. My husband is a patron member.
Okay. Yeah.
He helped build. He designed the walls that we're still using to hang the work on.
Yeah.
And so we're still involved. I'm actually involved with a group down in St. Mary's too, which is just another extension
Right.
of the number of artists that live in Maryland
Right.
that I've met over the years is
Yeah.
astounding to me. I had no idea this existed until we started the guild.
Right. Right.
I mean, if we had never started the guild, I probably would just be viewing them from a distance.
Yeah, I think there'd be a lot of people, and we wouldn't have met the people we met and
Right.
had
Yeah.
relationships beyond doing, going to the Smithsonian with Laura Collins that worked there, and we had field trips. We do field trips with other artists and go places and
Yeah.
see different art shows, and
It
it's
has
just so
enriched
many
your
things
lives.
that have gone.
Yeah, and so
gone.
JoAnne, you're sticking around for a while.
I'll be here. I'll be there, yeah.
Well, I was going to say you have to now at the Elkie. I mean, that's
The
just,
Elkie
that's-
artist is that's just been a passion of mine to, I don't know. I worked with the inner city kids at with Janet Goldberg and did this kind of the same thing with these little teeny cameras, and just to see these girls that they were down at Camp Wybana for the weekend, and it was just such a with where their lives were at the time, and to do that, it was great. I mean, they just saw all this vision. I mean, they thought they were going to be somebody after they took a couple pictures, and we printed them and
Don't we all
gave it
think
to them
that?
black and white.
Yeah,
I mean, it was just it was great.
Yeah.
And I really want to continue in that path on the community and the kids.
Well, that's what I was going to say. They always say that kids keep you young. Well, I mean, to me, they make me older because they give me gray. But to some degree.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, ladies, thank you very, very much for
thank
traveling
you.
all the way up to Baltimore to come talk to me.
Thank you for contributing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and hope I know you're going to be involved with our 10th anniversary,
Yeah,
and this is
ma'am.
a stepping off with the podcast. So
Yes.
thank you so much.
Thank you. We
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to coming down again, and I've always had fond memories, and definitely, I only spent probably 2 years with the Guild, but it was still a great experience. A lot of good people.
Yeah.
I'm still in touch with most of them. I am every so often, and I've actually been introduced to other people who we didn't even know, but we were both members at the same time, or things like that. So it's just funny how that all works out, isn't it?
Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
We're all connected. Okay, so the Muddy Creek Artists Guild 10-year anniversary show is taking place on what dates, Bea?
It's coming up May 10th and through 12th, and then 17th through the 19th. So it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 2 weekends. The first weekend is the Mother's Day weekend, and the second one is before Memorial Weekend. So it's best time to come out and see our show and see everybody who's coming back.
Right. And what are the times? Remind me of the times.
The times are, they
Various.
change every day a little bit, but generally opening late morning till 8 o'clock at night.
Right.
And then Sunday we close at 5. So, it's
Plenty of
everybody
time.
pretty much knows the hours. Mid part of the day, good shopping hours.
Right.
Not too early.
South River Colony is the name of that shopping center, right?
Yes, it is the Main Street Shops back on the back side behind the old Kmart that's now closed, and up the street from the original steakhouse, which has also been a great supporter of our shows that we've had in Edgewater.
Yes, they have.
Yeah.
And you can find out all this information on your website, which
Yes.
is?
The website is muddycreekartistguild.org, and like us on Facebook.
Right.
And you can find us on Twitter, Muddy Creek Artist Guild.
Okay.
We're not very active on Twitter,
right.
but our Facebook page is great.
Absolutely.
And we're getting very creative on that.
Right.
And then we always do a mailer, and if you're on our mailing list, you'll get notice of it.
I was going to say you can do that. I know there's sign-ups at the shows as well as
Yeah.
the website too, right? I think so.
You can, if you've signed up at one of our shows to get information, you'll get it automatically. But if any of our former members are listening to this podcast and you want to be in this show, you can contact me or JoAnne, and you can go on our website. We will have the application up on our website.
Okay.
And even if you can't be in the show, please come to the show.
Right. Send your artwork, right?
Send your artwork.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thank you, ladies.
Thank
Thank you.